The point of entry is an interesting concept in the automotive landscape. Take, for example, this updated 2022 GMC Terrain. This is the least expensive SUV you can get from the brand that only makes trucks and SUVs. So this should be, for a lot of buyers, the point of entry to the GMC experience. This should be the vehicle that attracts younger buyers into the fold and theoretically convinces them to stick with the GMC brand going forward. But can the Terrain do that? Especially as the mid-size crossover and smaller SUV segment really heats up in terms of the competition. I think we should hit the road and find out. Perhaps it's that effort to capture first-time buyers that in the 2022 update the Terrain received, one of the biggest updates on paper is the inclusion of this new AT4 trim. Now, on existing GMC models, the AT4s are sort of the more adventurous and outdoorsy of the bunch, often with things like chunkier tires and lifted up suspensions and updated interiors, things like that. These are vehicles that would seemingly feel equally at home on a trail or trailhead just as they would driving around town. So what exactly is the Terrain working with as far as hardware is concerned? Well, there's just one powertrain combination you can really do. It's a 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder that's good for 170 horse and 203 pound-feet of torque, which is paired to a 9-speed automatic transmission. Front-wheel drive is standard on the Terrain, though all-wheel drive is available for an extra $1,600, or in the case of this AT4 trim, standard equipment. I'm a bit less than impressed with this setup, to be frank with you. The engine seems smooth enough. The real hang-up does seem to be the combination of the accelerator pedal mapping and this automatic transmission, which just seems very lazy and recalcitrant. Around town, you might not notice it quite as much, but on the interstate, doing higher speed passing, for example, even when you mash the gas, the transmission really takes a second to think to itself, what should I do here before dropping 4 or 5 gears and giving you what power the engine does in fact have. I'm also a bit less than impressed by the fuel efficiency because with EPA ratings of 25 mpg city, 28 mpg in the freeway, and 26 mpg combined, things sound decent at first glance. In the real world, after a week of driving, I've averaged just 21 miles to the gallon, which is quite a ways off the mark there. And that seems a bit disappointing for how meager this engine really is. I mean, just 170 horsepower in a vehicle of this size, well, I mean, you think you'd at least get better fuel efficiency than that. And it's worth noting that up until 2020, GMC offered the Terrain with the optional upgrade of a 2-liter turbo engine that had 252 horsepower and by all accounts was a much nicer engine. Though apparently GMC got rid of that option to streamline production costs and because of the low consumer take rate. From there, the AT4 kind of picks up on things and tries to make this thing feel a bit more adventurous with the inclusion of a front skid plate and slightly chunkier tires, which should certainly help when the going gets dusty. I was able to put the AT4 to a bit of a test on one of my favorite off-roading trails outside of Los Angeles here, and it seemed to do the job well enough. In a similar vein to vehicles like, say, the Honda Passport Trail Sport. Because GMC has not made these huge sweeping changes to the Terrain's personality with the inclusion of this AT4 trim, it really is equally comfortable on the road as it is clambering up a dusty old trail. It may not have a locking rear differential like a contemporary Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, or the big meaty tires you can get on, say, like a Ford Bronco Sport or whatever, but of course this is a GMC. GMC is more of a luxury-oriented brand. So it has enough capability to satisfy most people who buy this thing and do ever take it off-road, if they ever take it off-road, but it's really on the road that it needs to work better. Oh, hi there. It's your boy, just checking in. Are you enjoying the video so far? Well, of course you are. That's because this is some grade A primo content we're talking about. So go ahead and show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. It's free and it helps the channel. All right, back to the video. And initially at least, things look pretty positive. The terrain is definitely geared towards comfort. This is a very soft and comfortable suspension and a decently isolated cabin in terms of road and wind noise, at least at higher speeds. Also at 6'1", I fit very comfortably in both the front and the back of the terrain, and with 30 cubic feet of storage, the trunk is pretty capacious as well. And that's really the sort of thing that buyers seem to be looking for when they switch from sedans to something like a midsize crossover or a smaller SUV like this. All in a package that's not overly large or difficult to park around town in tight parking spaces. One thing worth pointing out from the interior is the fact that there's a pretty notable over-the-shoulder blind spot in this thing. For some reason, GMC's designers kind of kinked up the quarter panel, resulting in a really small rear glass in this thing. With the sort of mission statement out of the way, I want to come back to this interior for a second. Now, our Tester costs almost $40,000 as it sits, which is definitely a lot of money. Though, as you might expect, it's pretty nicely equipped overall. We have a leather interior here with heated and powered seats. We have a leather-wrapped heated steering wheel, a large panoramic sunroof. We have an 8-inch infotainment display that has a 7-speaker Bose audio system. And what's cool is that even on a base model zero option terrain, this thing has a wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto connectivity, which is just neat to have. GMC is the more luxury-oriented brand in the General Motors lineup. It kind of goes Chevrolet, GMC, Cadillac, that's the sort of hierarchy there. But this experience doesn't feel any better than a contemporary Chevrolet Equinox, which shares the same basic bones as this vehicle. And that seems to be a common problem with other GMC vehicles as well. They don't feel delineated enough from their Chevrolet counterparts. And I bring that up because a contemporary Equinox can be equipped about as nicely as this for about $4,000 less. This price is generally in line with the sort of lightly off-road inspired models you can get in this segment. Vehicles like the Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road, and kind of stretching it here, the Subaru Outback Wilderness, though in my opinion that's a much more successful blend of on and off-road utility. Though it's worth mentioning, if you drop $39,000 into that RAV4 or even something like a Kia Sportage X Pro, you are going to get more equipment for the same cash and kind of a nicer experience overall, in my opinion. Ultimately, I suppose it boils down to what kind of personality do you want from your vehicle? Because for similar money, you could have a more sporty and athletic ride like the Mazda CX-50 with its rugged good looks and punchy 2.5-liter turbo engine. And on the flip side, there are ultra-efficient alternatives like the Hyundai Tucson plug-in hybrid, if you want to satisfy your green side. GMC is supposed to represent being rugged and luxurious, but I think the terrain kind of misses the marks on both counts there, unfortunately, especially compared to, again, some of the fantastic alternatives available in the market. There's nothing explicitly wrong with this experience, there are just better values elsewhere, in my opinion. Though, of course, that's just the opinion of one, so I think that's where I'll leave it for now, guys. In any case, my name is Jake, you've been watching Drive, Brake, Fix, Repeat, and I'll see you guys next time. We're going to do more fun things with cars. Bye.